everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to bring you my month in review for January. I have indeed stopped my weeks in review, mainly because I want to change up how I talk about books, and because I'm not going to be attempting to be reading as many as I did last year, which it was an absurd number. This month in January, I read a grand total of 25 books with an average star rating of 3.48. Considering that I rate books out of 5 stars, that's a pretty good star rating average, I think. I rated at least 2 books 5 stars and at least 2 books only 1 star. Of the worst of the month, the 2 books that I rated at 1 stars were The Black Cauldron by Alexandra Lloyd, which is the second book in the Prydain Chronicles, and Blankets by Craig Thompson, which is a graphic novel that had been lent to me by a friend. In the case of The Black Cauldron, I did read The Book of Three last year in 2015, and I said I didn't enjoy it, but I'd been told that The Black Cauldron was better. I gave it a shot, I just couldn't get into it. I really hated most of the characters, and I didn't think the writing was anything particularly special. Despite the fact that this is a young readers / middle grade series, even if I were in middle grade, I don't think I would be enjoying this novel, because I find the characters so insufferable, and most of my views towards characters have not changed much since I was young, so I would have found these characters insufferable as a child too. In the case of Blankets, I really just don't think I'm the target audience. I just did not like the point of view character, a teenage boy. I did not like his point of view at all. I didn't like the relationship that happens throughout the book. And because I didn't come from a family that seems as restrictive as this character's, I can't really empathize with him, and I just couldn't get into it. And as I said to my friend, frankly, I thought it was rubbish. As for the 2 books that I rated 5 out of 5 stars, the first was Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. This is not a book that I thought I would like. As I've said many times, I really don't read romance, and of all the books that I've reviewed on this channel, I think only one of them has straight up really been an adult contemporary, and that was I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. This is another one of those exceptions. I know that Colleen Hoover is particularly popular here on BookTube. I'd never personally read anything by her, and Maybe Someday happened to be available for my library, and I'd heard it was pretty good. I'd also heard there was an original soundtrack to go with it, which was what really piqued my interest. So I got it, and I was listening to the soundtrack while I was reading it. You know, as these songs get mentioned, if you get an ebook, there are links inside of the book that you tap or click, and it opens up to where you can listen to that song. And I really loved that kind of interactive experience with the book. I ended up enjoying the characters. I really enjoyed the music, especially. I ended up buying the soundtrack because I enjoyed it so much, and I thought it was just a particularly cute new adult story. This doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to go out and read more new adult. I might try more Colleen Hoover because I kind of like the way she builds her characters, despite the fact that I did have a couple issues with some of the things that were said. But in general, I really like how she writes her characters, so I'd be interested to read more by her. The other book that I rated a 5 out of 5 stars was The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. I did, of course, read this in translation. It was originally written in Italian. I think one of these days I would like to go try reading it in Italian. It would take me a very long time, though, because reading this in English took me a long time. There's an awful lot of Latin that is in this book, and it's not translated for you. Because I took 5 years of Latin, I was taking the time to try and translate every line of Latin that showed up. But please understand, when I say I took 5 years of Latin, that really doesn't matter. My vocabulary recall is absolutely wretched. The Name of the Rose is a murder mystery that is set in a 1300s Benedictine monastery. It is absolutely fantastic. It's very dense, and it's not a quick read by any regards, but I absolutely loved the characters. I loved the amount of research that clearly went into this novel, because you really felt like you were there. And the fun part was then also afterwards I went and watched the film adaptation of The Name of the Rose starring Sean Connery and a very young Christian Slater in his first ever film role. What's interesting for me about adaptations is, having studied film but also minoring in English, I can look at both sides of the adaptation process, and I think oftentimes be a little more fair-minded towards adaptations. While I thought that the film certainly had its flaws, there was a lot of stuff that had to get cut out and excised because there's only so much you can cram into a 2-hour movie. I think Sean Connery did a really phenomenal job playing the lead character. I really quite enjoyed his performance. I liked seeing F. Murray Abraham show up as the leader of the Inquisition. And at the end of the day, when you learn the truth behind the mystery, you figure out what's really going on, it's kind of sad but also brilliant. And there's a scene at the end that it makes me as a bibliophile just makes my heart stop and absolutely makes me just, oh goodness, I can barely take it. But I think that's the power of the book, and that I get so invested in it that the ending just has me going, oh god, no, what is happening, what is happening, what is happening? If you're interested in a really good historical fiction novel that's also a really good mystery at the same time, I do highly recommend The Name of the Rose, but also with the caveat that it might take you a while. It's a fairly long book. In January, Backroom Whispering Productions, for which I am the producer, also released a couple episodes of The Book Table, which I will link down below. And if you go to the website, you will find that I also wrote a couple of blog posts over there. One of them about the process by which I tend to generate my characters when I write, and another in which I ask the question of whether or not having a background within the historical or cultural aspects that form the inspiration for a book, particularly fantasy or science fiction books, makes you more or less inclined to like the book. Are you gonna judge it more harshly or be a little more kind to it? But that's it for me today, you guys, and so until next time, cheers.